Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in Nigeria's Commercial Nerve Center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzanga. I want to say a very big Happy New Year to you, our esteemed viewers in Nigeria and around the world. Thank you so much for always keeping company with us on the program. And I can promise you, on behalf of your regular host, Shen Okimbaloye, that this year will be bigger and even better. So let's bring you the first story we've been tracking for you in the polity, and that's coming from the nation's capital, Abuja, where President Bola Tinubu, shortly after his New Year broadcast, signed a 28.7 trillion naira 2024 budget into law. President Tinubu signed the budget in a brief ceremony at the presidential villa, surrounded by senior government officials. And among those with the president while he signed were the president of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Tajuddin Abbas, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, and Minister of Budget and National Planning, Mr. Atiku Bagudu, among others. The President directed all MDAs to submit monthly performance reports.
To begin the year, because we're here to sign the 2024.
We have a sustainable roadmap to our economic recovery. This is no beer parlor assurance. It's a very serious one to all Nigerians. The ways and means trouble spot is being cleared. Nigeria is going through serious financial re-engineering, and I'm glad I have this team. You're a very good team, and I thank you very much.
Now, away from the president's office, there's a move to now ensure that Nigerian passport regains its integrity in the international community. And that's coming from the Minister of Interior, Mr. Olubunmi Tunji Ojo, when he met with the leadership of the Nigerian Immigration Service. Mr. Tunji Ojo explains that security features on the passport are expected to guard against the issuance of passports to non-Nigerians.
Never again will a non-Nigerian carry a Nigerian passport. That's the main point. You cannot come from anywhere else and think Nigerian passport can be purchased, can be bought, and at the end of the day cast aspersion on who we are as hard-working people. Cast aspersion on who we are as honest people. Cast aspersion on who we are as the biggest black nation on earth. Nobody will rubbish the integrity of this country again. So if anybody, and I repeat, anybody wants a Nigerian passport, just make sure you're a Nigerian and all documents that you submit online are genuine, because we will verify documents.
Now, Rivers State, I should say, is still in the news. This time, a member of the Rivers State House of Assembly, Mr. Edison Ehie, has resigned as his position as the Speaker and member of the State House of Assembly. Mr. Ehie, in his notice of resignation sent to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, thanked his constituents for their support. However, the letter did not state why he's leaving his seat as a lawmaker in the Rivers State House of Assembly. The State House of Assembly has been mired in political crisis, with Mr. Ehie removed from his position as leader of the House. Alongside, he was suspended by that particularly 26 members, alongside 3 others. In response, however, Mr. Ehie's group came together and elected him as a parallel speaker, with the governor subsequently recognizing him as a speaker. Now, there was a court injunction stopping the Martins Amiwola and his group from interfering with Ehie in carrying out his duty as speaker. A peace deal was reached and signed by both Governor Fubara, Siminalayi Fubara, I should say, and the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, but the deal was totally silent on the plight of Ehie and his group. So we really don't know how things will play out in Rivers State. It's going to be part of our conversation on the second part of this program for today. But for now, let's bring you other political roundup stories.
Abia State Governor Dr. Alex Otti has resounded the commitment of his administration to restore the state to its rightful place, with assurances that all pension arrears of its retired workers will be paid before the end of the first quarter of 2024. Speaking during his New Year broadcast to the people of the state, Governor Otti says his government has concluded plans for an upward review of salaries of all the employees of the state government to reflect the economic reality of the time.
Effective urban waste management, prompt payment of salaries, support to the economically poor and vulnerable amongst us, it is evident that we are on a mission to rebuild and restore the glory of our fatherland.
In the South-South region of Edo State, the year 2024 is another crucial political year, as the governorship election will take place later in the year. To this end, Governor Godwin Obaseki is calling on residents to make a wise choice ahead of the polls. Governor Obaseki, who was speaking in the New Year broadcast, urges the electorate to vote for the candidate with the prerequisite qualifications and capacity to move Edo State forward. An aspirant of the Labour Party in the Edo State governorship election, Mr. Olumide Akpata, is also calling on residents of the state to make the right choice during the 2024 governorship election. In an exclusive interview with Channels Television in Benin City, the former NBA president highlights the need for citizens to keep the peace and eschew violence of any form. Over to Kaduna State, where Governor Uba Sani is giving assurance to the people of the state of accelerated development and improved security on lives and property of the citizens. According to him, his administration will put more attention on revitalizing the rural communities through massive infrastructural development, agriculture, and healthcare. Meanwhile, Governor Agbo Kefas of Taraba State has granted clemency to 31 inmates in correctional centers across the state. In his New Year message to the people of the state, the governor notes that the decision reflects his administration's commitment to justice, compassion, and belief in the transformative power of rehabilitation. The candidate of the Accord Party in the 2023 Rivers State governorship election, Juma Lulu Briggs, has withdrawn his appeal at the Supreme Court against the victory of Governor Siminalayi Fubara. A statement by Senior Special Assistant, Media, Nyabari Fakai, confirms the withdrawal. The Accord Party stalwart said if the ongoing political crisis in Rivers State is not halted, it would further worsen the lot of the people who he said had gone through a turbulent time last year.
Well, today on the program, two things we're going to do. First of all, we will be looking at the president's broadcast this morning. His very first on January 1st, since he became president of Nigeria. He made a few statements, and the guest I'm going to be having joining us, we will dissect that speech and take a look at how it will impact Nigerians in the long run. That will be first part of our conversation. And after that conversation, we'll switch gears to Rivers State. We'll be joined by a governorship candidate in the last governorship election in that state to talk about some of the developments in Rivers State as we step into the new year. And I'm being joined via Zoom by Professor Anthony Killer. He's a professor of strategy. Professor, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Good to be here.
Absolutely, sir. And I must say Happy New Year to you.
Yes, indeed. Happy New Year to you and to everybody. Happy New Year.
All right, we're also being joined by a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Adeleke Agbola. Mr. Adeleke Agbola, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to you.
All right, gentlemen, just before we get into the conversation, let's take a listen to some of the things the president said. He had mentioned the fact that he understands how Nigerians are really now going through the challenges they are going through, given some of what is considered bold economic reforms he's put in place. But he's saying they should not despair, and he talked about the fact that as a government, they are working on developing the environment, looking at things like tax policy reforms and ease of doing business, and the coming upstream of the refineries. Let's take a listen to some of the first things he said.
This new year, we will race against time to ensure all the fiscal and tax policies reforms we need to put in place are codified and simplified to ensure the business environment does not destroy value. On every foreign trip I have embarked on, My message to investors and other business people has been the same. Nigeria is ready and open for business. I will fight every obstacle that impedes business competitiveness in Nigeria, and I will not hesitate to remove any clog hindering our path to making Nigeria a destination of choice for local and foreign investment.
That was not all the president said in almost his 15 minutes broadcast. He talked about workers. He knows and understands, according to him, that they've been struggling, just like every other Nigerian, to make ends meet, and he's promised a review of what he calls the living wage.
The economic aspirations and the material well-being of the poor, the most vulnerable, and the working people shall not be neglected. It is in this spirit that we are going to implement a new national living wage for our industrious workers this new year. It is not only good economics to do this, it's also a morally and politically correct thing to do.
Prof. And Senior Advocate Leonard Seoka, I'm sure you may have listened live to his speech or may have read this speech. This is about the fourth or fifth speech he's made in terms of broadcast to the nation. I want to get your impression, first of all, on this particular speech. Let me start with you, Prof. What's your first impression? What did you make out of this speech? More like an overview of the president's speech.
Well, I think, there are five major things to take away from that speech. Number one is the prose. I think it was very well written. There are some flaws here and there, but there are minor flaws. Overall, it's a good speech. That needs to be said. The speech is also good because it shows an understanding of the reality of Nigeria. It says, I know things are tough, and I want you to bear with me. It's going to get better because we're doing the right thing. I think the prose also helped to use some euphemisms there to say, things are not going very well. In reality, things are really, really tough. Things are very bad for a lot of people in terms of the economy. But I think the key thing is that the president, or better still, the presidency, shows that they understand this very tough reality, although they did not use very colorful language for that. The language that was used of do not falter, keep going, that's where the poetry comes in. It does not say, I know you're suffering, I know many people are in poverty, I know many people are begging for money in this season. The president did not say that, but it shows you understand. It also shows the ongoing activity to make things happen. When he says, every step I have taken, every trip I have undertaken is geared towards making things better. I think that's a big thing, to say that I'm really doing my best. I'm doing everything I can do. It also tells you one thing. A president or a presidency that understands the reality and says, I am doing everything to make the reality better, it shows that they know what is wrong. So, they're neither aloof nor daft. So if they don't get it right, they're either mischievous or incompetent, because it is clear that they have a very clear idea of what is wrong. One thing, I would take away, there is a general commitment to say, I shall make sure investments come in, reduce or simplify process and tax. Those are general statements, which I think presidents make. It would have been good to get some action point, to say something like, as from next week, this will happen. I guess you'll see that from the budget or the point. But overall, I think it's a good speech. And I think it's something worthy of a New Year's speech.
All right, Prof. We're going to break that speech down as much as possible. But let me get the impression of the Leonard Seoka. Leonard Seoka, let me take your impression of that particular speech before we dig deep.
Yes, going through the speech and listening to it earlier this morning, it shows a man who is prepared for the job, who knows what is coming to meet. I'm impressed by the taking out what the issues are, the suffering the Nigerians are going through. There is nothing, nobody can say that people are not suffering. There's a lot of suffering, but the dark come before the dawn. So what the president is more or less saying is that, look, I know you are suffering, but it's going to get better. The body language shows somebody who understands that there's a problem in the country and that is looking out for it. Whether he's doing enough is a different ballgame entirely. There are areas that can be better. There are areas of waste that can be cut off to show the people. The president understands that people are suffering. But specific areas he has identified: farming, agriculture, the electricity situation in Nigeria, the poor salaries that are being earned by the public sector workers, the scarcity of foreign exchange. Those are areas he has quickly identified. And they need to streamline the tax regime because the multiple taxes are really killing businesses in Nigeria. So we just hope that the president will follow up. It's not just be speeches, it will be action. All right, we are hopeful.
Okay, apologies. I thought you were done. Let me go back to Prof. Prof. and Leonard Silk. We're going to break it down to some of the economic promises he made. I'll mention them, but I'm going to ask some questions before we get to those economic promises. I know he talked about steady power supply through the installation of the power projects when he was mentioning Siemens. I know he talked about the refineries, whether Port Harcourt or Dangote. I know he talked about the implementation of the new living wage, which we played the track as well, tax and fiscal reform policies and reforms and all of that, food security and affordability. Those are some of the promises he made in terms of the economy. But I want to read a quote from that speech and ask you, Prof. He said, "I am not oblivious to the expressed and sometimes unexpressed frustrations of my fellow citizens. I know for a fact that some of our compatriots are even asking if this is how our administration wants to renew their hope." Now, the president appears to empathize with the people. He's done that consistently since those bold economic reforms. But in your view, given what he said and given the action that has been taken so far, is he approaching the redemption of the economy with the needed urgency that is required, in your view?
No, I think not. And that's the short answer. I think, there's a very high understanding. I think the president and the presidency, I keep repeating, is very high on intention, but I score them low on action generally. It's either because the situation is complex or because what they're planning is not as fast or as impactful as one would have expected. Because it is important that it is not Nigerians generally, it is not me, it is not Prince Adeleke and Prince Agbola who said they're going to hit the ground running. It is the president and the team themselves who brought in that phrase of hitting the ground running. So they don't hit the ground running. It is legitimate to hold them accountable and responsible for that. It is also clear that a lot of this problem they did not create, they met there. But I think very gallantly, the president himself has said, do not pity me. So to those people who want to cry more than the bereaved, who want to explain the president's problem more than the president, I tell them to chill. The man himself knows the problem, and he has said, don't pity me. I think the intention is very high. The understanding is high, but ideologically speaking, I argue that there are some things that should be done differently. For example, there is something about the policy, the spending of money, this, billions of naira for books, billions of naira for cars, which does not sound well. Now, I tell you, looking at numbers, it is not that those things will save the economy by not buying those cars for legislators, for example, but it will send a signal that the presidency, this administration is sober and serious on action. That is one thing. So if you want to go to the economy, for example, and this is why let's be careful. It is not right or wrong. It is, an ideological sort of position. The president is saying it is not only moral, but it's politically right, to increase salaries. Some of us argue that it might be morally right, but the political economy of that is disputable. What we really need is to make things cost less, not to throw more money at people. Because I argue that this idea that everybody is embracing, of saying increase salary without increasing production is simply going to cause more inflation. And all the money you throw at people is going to be swallowed by the dark, nasty tunnel of inflation. But I pause there and let's think about it.
Okay, let me come to you. I'm going to read another quote as well, because when you listen to the president's speech, I noticed, in my view, he had a lot to say about the economy and maybe not much to talk on security. We'll get to that in a moment. So let's dwell on where his big statements were on. He said, I will fight every obstacle that impedes business competitiveness in Nigeria, and I will not hesitate to remove any clog hindering our path to making Nigeria a destination of choice for local and foreign investment. Now, how do you juxtapose that with the exit of GSK, Sanofi, Unilever in terms of production and all of that? This is a president that is committing to say, whatever is going to make us lose business, I will literally say I will fight that thing. But big businesses are leaving the country. So maybe you help me make sense of what's going on here.
Thank you. The issue of some companies leaving Nigeria is really, these are issues that predates the coming to office of President Tinubu. And when you look at those companies, it is a global strategy. It's not limited to Nigeria. You'll be surprised that companies like GSK, even Canada, they exited from it. So it's a global strategy. But on a serious note, we need to do a lot to ensure that businesses are attracted to Nigeria. A situation where some areas, you have about 50 different taxes being paid by a single company on the same product. You do not expect that there will be people will be attracted. Then when people bring in their money to remit foreign exchange and out of the country is almost an impossibility. So those are areas that the government can do for ease of business. When you travel through our Nigeria airports, you'll be shocked at the level of corruption in the system. Our people are not willing to let people go. You travel, SSS, we ask you where you are traveling to, immigration, we ask you, NDLA, we ask you. These are issues that it can streamline. I remember there was one when Oshibajo was acting president, he issued some proclamation as to ease of doing business so that a lot of agencies were removed from the airport. But they are back. So the truth is that when the President Tinubu is somebody who understands business, he understands how to impact the ease of doing business in Nigeria. When as governor in Lagos State, he introduced the 30-day consent rule. But the same Lagos State now is taking almost 4 years to get consent. So these are things that it's not only president that we must talk about. We must talk about the people surrounding him. We must talk about the governors. We must talk about all the people around the area that will make business to boom in Nigeria. So that some companies are leaving, the strategy is how to attract them, to give them the necessary impetus to come back. Nigeria is a big economy, whether you call it 150 million, 200 million. It's a very big economy that people is investing. So we just hope that what the president has highlighted will be put into action.
All right, let me come to you, Prof. As I said, the president was big on the economy, and if my producer can help me put up that slide, if it's ready, when he talked about the refinery, he said in 2024, we're moving a step further in our quest to restart local refining of petroleum products with Port Harcourt Refinery and the Dangote Refinery, which shall fully come on stream. So that is from the president's speech this morning. But, Prof, I listened to the NNPCL's group CEO, and he mentioned that, look, the coming of these refineries doesn't necessarily mean that prices would dip. It's just for energy security. So should Nigerians be excited?
Well, I mean, I don't know. The DMD of NNPC, the man just came as some kind of anti-climate, wet blankets, party spoiler person. But I guess he's just saying the truth. But it's a very bad truth. We always want people to be truthful, but some truths are bad truths. The whole point, the reason why people were rejoicing for the Dangote refinery and for the Port Harcourt one was a simple assumption that we start refinery, prices will go down. I mean, it's a political assumption, but it's also an economical assumption because people think that, where there's more supply, the price will go down. And the man comes out to say that. I've been looking for him. If you find him, tell him he needs to explain more, because that thing is not a healthy thing. I think if the government is rejoicing that there are more refineries, then for the benefit of the people, the government should make sure that more people benefit from such events. And the only way to benefit is if the prices go down. Well, that's the main way, We'll also look at employment, and we should also look at the effect of the refinery on forex of the country. But the main way, and this is the definition, those who are old enough or who have read his work, the late Chief of Bafemi Awolowo used to point out that he taught some of us that the way to judge something is to make sure that more people will benefit from it, using the Jeremy Bentham approach to policy making. The way that more people will benefit from the arrival of more refineries will be if the prices go down. That is what most people will get. Some people will get jobs. Some people will benefit from forex. Some people benefit by supplying those refineries because there will be consultants, there will be vendors, and there will be technical people. But most people, the benefit will be if the price go down. So they really need to make the price go down. But again, you see, unintentional. In all the speech that we're identifying, the president mentioned 5 areas. If he can achieve those 5 areas, we'll be fine. He talked about revamping the economy, restoring security within the borders, revitalizing the industrial sector, boosting agricultural production, and increasing national productivity. If he can achieve those 5 things, make it 6. He even talked about electricity, which he defined, well, I paraphrase him, a sine qua non element, an element without which all these things cannot be achieved. If we can focus on all those 6 things, we're going to be, we're going to be a fantastic country in a short while. That's the trajectory.
All right, Prof. Let me, since you mentioned the issue of the power, is quite important. We've struggled with power almost like forever. This one, I'm asking you, Base, what are you going to advise President Bola Tinubu going forward in 2024 to do to at least give a glimmer of hope to Nigerians? We have about 12 to 13,000 megawatts of installed capacity of power, and we barely scratched a third of that, almost all the time. Sometimes we revolve around 3 to 5,000 megawatts. We're never going above that. I think there was a time we just went slightly above that, and since then, the grid, I understand, collapsed about 12 times last year. So he's saying that, look, power is quite central. That's why I had to talk with the Chancellor, German Chancellor, and all of the things he said at COP28. So this is more like, if you're advising President Bola Tinubu right now, in terms of fixing power, what exactly are you going to tell him? Because if he does that, it's going to leave a legacy. Prof.
Well, I think you've given the advice. Yes, you've given the advice. He needs to remember if he can do that, that's the legacy thing. So the advice will be, if we need 10, go for 15. Whatever it takes, get it done. How do you do it? How do you do it? The existing agreement should be fully implemented and even fast-tracked. And then we should get more. Where possible, do private partnership. Where possible, study what's wrong, and get it happen. That's the legacy project. Any leader that does that in Nigeria will write his or her name in gold. So it is worth pursuing.
Let me come to you, Leonard Silk. Prof, when I was asking Prof about this issue of the refinery, not necessarily guaranteeing that prices will dip, but just to guarantee that, look, at all times we're going to have fuel or PMS in our cars, in our generator, or whatever we use PMS for, which is what the GMD and NPC has said. So, and Prof has been, he clearly stated that, look, what will work for everybody if that price come down? That will be the benefit of everybody. But do you think that the president thinking of increasing what he calls the new, or introducing the new living wage is more like a markup to meet up the difference it will make if those prices don't dip, in your view?
Well, the truth is that when you look at the final situation, the bulk of the money that has been spent on it has been foreign exchange. Look at the Dangote refinery. And a lot of this money were borrowed from international financial institutions. They have to be repaid. So, and NNPC itself is selling oil to the refineries at international prices. So we are not going to expect a drastic reduction in price in the short term. But as time goes on, as debts are paid off, as the country is stabilized, and you have more things coming. Because when you look at this, the refinery is not just a matter of producing petrol. There are so many other byproducts that will be useful for the economy that other industries can take benefit from. So we should not be looking at the short-term issue. It's a disgrace that a country as big as Nigeria, as our producing country, has to be importing refined product. So that's shame. We must remove it in this year, by God's grace. So the president is quite aware of the situation. He has been in the forefront of expanding the national frontier in power production, in fuel, in producing crude, and refining it. We will state the problem mentioned something about the issue of electricity just now, and that is really something that the president must declare an emergency on. Where I live, which is just a few streets down the street from the polling units of the president himself, we've not, the light situation that's generated in the past 3 or 4 months. We used to have about 20 hours of electricity. We hardly have any now. So there is a serious situation on our hand that whatever plans you are doing without addressing the electricity situation is going to be for naught. So the president, as the governor of Lagos State, introduced Enron badges at that time, which President Obasanjo shut down. We need something like that as a short-term issue to address rapidly the deteriorating power situation. There is a lot of crisis. At Ikeja, recently, there's something that got burned down. We discovered that it was installed as far back as 1948, and that was serving almost the whole of Ikeja. Now it is done, and that is affecting the life situation in Ikeja. So we have a problem. Yes.
My apologies. I understand we're almost out of time. So let me throw in this one question for you before I go to Professor. He said so many things in his speech today, but I think to the best of my knowledge, I did not see him mention anything that has to do with the killings on the plateau, the carnage that we've experienced in last December. I know he did mention that silently they are working behind the scene to get some people that were kidnapped, released, and all of that. But some Nigerians feel that given the number of fatalities that were recorded, which people describe as a carnage on the plateau, since the president is big on empathy, he should have at least mentioned them to give them that sense of belonging as a father of the nation in his first broadcast in January and in a new year. Do you think so?
I agree with you, sir. And I think that was a serious oversight on part of the president. Because it's not only a plateau, there are so many areas that we're having issues on the security situation in Nigeria. And the president of the Federal Nation needs to give hope that things are being done in those areas. And because when you lose up to 200 people on Christmas Day, and you are giving a speech on New Year's Day, and you are ignoring, it appears you are ignoring that issue, I don't think the optics is very bad. He mentioned the issue of security that they are trying to resolve it. Yes, it will take time, but that does not mean you cannot give a nod to those people and commiserate with them.
All right, let me come to you, Prof. Quickly. Just, Prof, if you can answer me this in 30 seconds before we head on a break. I listened to him. He said that from the days when he ran as a senator and won, though that exercise was botched, so becoming the governor of Lagos State for 8 years and now the president of Nigeria, one of his cardinal goals is to close the inequality gap. But we've seen that his bold reforms has actually expanded that gap. For those who don't believe what he's saying, what should he be telling them?
Well, I think, he's saying that because he knows that that thing does not reflect in his action. He's reassuring people to let them know that that is his intention. So the actions are not speaking that way. There is a Hausa proverb, the Karim Agenadi say that when you tell a blind man to walk, that there is no hole in front of him, he shows there is hole. He's saying that because there is trouble. And it's a good thing he says it, but he needs to walk the walk. At the moment, he's not doing that yet. As citizens, we have to hope that he really becomes that, but so far, no.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development, and the Leonard Silk, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Adeleke Agbola. I wish I had time to ask both of you gentlemen about his very strong stance on performance, because some people said our previous president in the past just delegated and let them, that he's saying, look, if you don't perform, I'll kick you out of the room. So, but there's no time to ask all of that. But I must thank you so much for helping us dissect this very first broadcast of January 1st of President Bola Tinubu. Professor and Senior Advocate, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, when we come back after this very break, we will switch gears to Rivers State. Last night, we got that information that Mr. Edison Ehie, who is the leader of the four in the State House of Assembly, resigned. There's a lot going on in Rivers State on the ground. We're going to be joined by Senator Magnus Abe, who was a governorship candidate of the SDP in the last election in Rivers State, and a former senator, of course, once a senator, always a senator, to give us his insight on the development in Rivers State. To join us again. Welcome back. We now switch gears to other issues of the day, which has to do with Rivers politics. It's never out of the news as far as we know, and as long as it's in the news, we'll continue to talk about it. The program is called Politics Today, after all. I'm being joined via Zoom by the governorship candidate of the Social Democratic Party in the last governorship election in Rivers State, Senator Magnus Abe. Senator, thank you so much for coming on the program. Senator, if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, fantastic. For a moment, I thought technology has failed us. Thank you so much. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to Nigerians everywhere. It's another brand new year, and we're looking forward with so much hope and excitement that things will be better this year, like our president has promised.
Maybe let me just take that liberty before I jump into the Rivers issues. Just your impression of the president's speech in just maybe 1 minute.
Well, in 1 minute, I will say that the president apparently read the mood of the nation right. And he has said a lot of things that Nigerians were really, really concerned about. And the important thing is that people understand from this that he actually is listening and seeing what is going on in the country. So I think all in all, it was a good speech for these times. It was the kind of thing that we needed to hear, full of hope, full of optimism, and then also full of promises of better days to come. That's the kind of thing we want to hear now.
All right, Senator, so let's not go into the issue of Rivers politics. I know and I'm aware that you were ahead, literally, if I may say that. Due to this feud between the governor of Rivers State and his predecessor, the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, we have seen things happen. One of the things we've seen is the withdrawal of suits by his political opponents. The first was the Labour Party candidate, Etubo Beatrice, withdrawing a suit against him, or a petition against him, if you will. And then the issue of I think it should be today, when Mr. Dumo Lulu Briggs also withdrew a suit which was instituted at the Supreme Court, challenging the victory of Governor Siminalayi Fubara. Now, you had told yourself so many months ago, and you withdrew your petition. Now, the first question I want to find out from you, what does this mean for the mandate of Governor Siminalayi Fubara? First off, let's lay that foundation before we dig deep.
Well, I think it's good news for the governor, because if people who were contesting your mandate are voluntarily withdrawing their contest against your victory, then it means that the possibility of you losing in the courts is diminished by the fact that nobody is actually against you at that point. So I think that this is a reflection of the stand of some of these political parties on the current crisis in Rivers State. And I don't think that they think it is in the interest of the state to continue to heat up the polity at a time when the governor appears to be under so much pressure. So I think it is their own contribution to trying to stabilize the politics.
Let me take a quote from when you chose not to continue with your petition. You were quoted as saying it is the interest of our state so that we begin to reduce the bickering and confusion that is in our state in order to give all of us opportunity to be able to move forward with our lives. As at this time, the issues we have now, we're not there. Now, seeing what is happening, are you disappointed with the ruling party, given the sacrifice you made by just saying, okay, let's just let it be, election have come and gone. But within the party that won, the state is in a crisis politically. Are you disappointed?
I think disappointed would be, it will not exactly convey the feelings of either myself or the majority of Rivers people. I think saddened will be a more appropriate word, because what is happening now in the state puts the entire state in bad light. It brings back the whole emphasis that we should be having at this time due to the economic challenges that Nigerians are facing, even here in Rivers State. But because of the emphasis on politics that we have, all our resources, all our time, all our energy is consumed by what I would term as a needless political crisis. And the sad thing is that not a lot of people in the state actually understand what the point of contention or the bone of contention is in the midst of all this. A lot of people don't simply understand what is even causing the crisis or the problem, so to speak, but they have to live with it on a daily basis. I think it's quite sad.
So let me ask, what do you make of this feud? Because I know you're a major stakeholder. However anyone wants to look at it, whether you're in the ruling party or not, you've served in government, you've been a lawmaker, you've seen as much as anyone who is in politics can see, and you were going into becoming the governor of the state. What do you really make of this particular feud between the governor? I'm talking about these two, the predecessor and the successor. What do you make of this feud if you were to make something out of it?
Really, like I said, it's really quite sad. I think that since some of these things are personality clashes, some of them are based on the dynamics of the relationship that existed between the parties prior to the governorship. Because when you have a master-servant relationship and then all of a sudden the quote and unquote servant is now in a position of power, and you still want to maintain the relationship on the basis of those dynamics, there's bound to be conflict. And if these conflicts are not properly handled, and then you have all sorts of haymakers on the side whose economic and political fortunes are tied to the apron strings of one party or the other, there's bound to be a lot of confusion and crisis in such a situation. But what I know is that, like I said today, I think a lot of people may have underrated the governor. I think he's really quite smart the way he has been able to navigate the issue so far. And I also think that he's listening to the president and trying to abide by the president's intervention was also a very smart move on his part. But given the dynamics of this kind of situation as it is ruled by, I don't think that the last has been heard from all the parties in this dispute as of yet, unless there is a genuine effort to handle this situation with maturity and dexterity. I think Rivers State is in for some rough days ahead, I must say. I don't think it's over yet.
Which is why we're bringing it to the front burner, because I'm going to ask you questions on concerns about escalation. But before all of that, I want to find out from you, I did mention that you're a major stakeholder. Have you been able to reach out to maybe FCT Minister Nyesom Wike or the governor himself to be able to maybe see what you can do or even hear them out I constantly ask the question, what exactly is the bone of contention between Governor Siminalayi Fubara and FCT Minister Nyesom Wike? A lot of people don't seem to know exactly what the case is. It looks like everybody's running around something. Nobody's actually pointing at it. You are a stakeholder in the state at a high level. What do you know? And what are they telling you? Have you reached out to any of them?
Well, to be very honest, I don't think that at this stage it will make much sense for any third party to try to intervene uninvited. I think that the person who has the capacity and the ability to intervene outside of the judicial interpretation or the judicial intervention that will be inevitable in this kind of situation is the president, because the both parties voluntarily submitted to his intervention. So I don't think in this kind of situation it will make much sense for me to call either the minister or the governor and start asking them what is the problem. I am not in a position to bring them together for the simple reason that neither of the parties will listen to me if I try to. But I do think that the president's intervention, which was meant to bring the parties to what we as lawyers would call status quo ante bellum, that's their various positions before the beginning of the crisis, was a good place to start. But, you know, in this kind of matter, it is very, very difficult to draw lines and believe that everybody is going to stick to those lines, because a lot has happened legally, a lot has also happened emotionally and psychologically within the states. And a dispute of this nature involves practically everybody in the state. Everybody in the state, one way or the other, is affected by what is going on. So it is very difficult, even for the parties themselves, to just take one position and walk away with it. I think that a lot of maturity is needed, particularly on the part of the two main actors. People just have to, you know, drop their egos and tempers and just allow things to just slide forward a bit so that, you know, the River State can breathe and move forward. I think that is the best way that their actions can help.
Senator, let me make the most, with the benefit of having you on the program today. I'm sure you've seen those resolutions. Are there concerns when you look at the 8-point resolution? That's one question. And when those resolutions were released to the press and we read through them, one of the things I raised, asking questions for people who come from River State who were responding to questions, was the fact that, look, a lot was said between the governor and the lawmakers that defected, but nothing was said about the Ehie group, the four. And just yesterday, we understand Ehie has resigned from the House. I don't know how you want to. So first, are there concerns with the resolutions when you look at it? Things like the governor has to represent the budget, represent the people that resign, you know, all of that, as well as this issue of Edison Ehie resigning as a member of the House.
Well, to me, the resolution was something that was reached between parties. And a lot of the parties who were involved in the crisis were not actually party to that resolution, but their interest one way or the other was covered. For me, those who voluntarily resigned from the government had taken a position based, a lot of them said it was for personal reasons. They had sworn to uphold the Constitution and to serve the state, you know, not an individual. Just on their own to walk away from that, and now they have been given the option of walking back, you know, to literally lick up what they have thrown up. But that is their own personal decision. The 8-point resolution, discussing it at this point, is really neither here nor there. Like I said, there will be issues in the implementation of those resolutions, because some of them are sub judice. Some of those issues are already being litigated by parties who are not party to those resolutions. But like I said, to me, what the president tried to do was to return the feeling parties to their position before the escalation of their disagreement. And they had voluntarily agreed to try to walk themselves back to that point. So I think it is something that will take a lot of doing. It will go even beyond the point of that 8-point resolution. Okay. But it's something that at this point involves practically everybody in the state, and everybody would have a different opinion. But since the governor had signed on to it, and then the parties had signed on to it, I was saying today that when I was a commissioner in the state, we had a friend of mine, Odeyin Ajimogobia, who was the attorney general, and everybody kept saying he wasn't a politician. But when it came to time to pick the minister for the state, Odeyin became the minister for Rivers State. And people were still saying he's not a politician, but he got the top job that all the politicians were looking for. So I think that the talk that the governor is not a politician is overtaken by the fact that he got the top job in the state as the governor. So people must give him the credit for however he managed to find himself as the governor of Rivers State. It is not a small position. And I believe that one way or the other, God will give them the wisdom to work through this situation as it is right now. All right. This is a very, very sad time.
All right, Senator, yes. I know you're a lawyer, but I may want to put you in a position. Two reasons. I don't know why. I know you said some things are sub judice, but I don't know what your interpretation of the lawmakers who defected, who are still in their house, who haven't, vacated their seats and all of that. I may like your take on it. And the other part is, to avoid this escalating further, we're seeing posturing, grandstanding along, lines of ethnicity, upland versus, riverine and all of that. If this thing blows beyond this, the conversation is not going to be as civil as it is. So what do we do to stop this as quickly as possible? That's one question. Second is your position on the lawmakers that defected who are still in the House. Just, if you can do that for us in 1 minute, sir.
Well, in 1 minute, like I said, the position of the lawmakers is being contested from different angles. What I was told is that their former party, the People's Democratic Party, is contesting their position. And by the terms of this agreement, the governor had agreed that they can stay in the APC at the present time. So in terms of the agreement, I think their position is secure for now. But there are outside forces who are not party to this agreement who will still contest that fact based on the constitutional provision. So I think that this is not over yet in a long shot. But like I said, what we need in the state is peace. And everybody has something they can do to contribute to giving us peace in the state so that Rivers people can at least begin to see the benefits of the dividends of democracy. Just 7 months after the last election, we don't need to begin to fight again 3 years before the next election. It just doesn't make sense to a lot of people.
All right, thank you so much, Senator Magnus Abe, the senator who, I wanted to say, the governorship candidate of the SDP in the last election. I wish I had more time. I wanted to ask you about the story we heard on the Mossop saying they are ready for oil exploitation in the land again, but unfortunately we don't have the time. But I'm saying here that if it's possible, we'll bring you back and we'll get your commitment to come and talk about that, because that is your area and we'd like to know how that came about. But unfortunately, we don't have time. So thank you so much, Senator.
Let me correct you a bit. Politically, I'm heading back to the APC. So that you should need to take cognizance of that as well.
Oh, breaking news. Senator Magnus Abe is leaving the SDP, going back to the APC. Can you say that again for the record, sir?
I said politically I'm heading back to the APC. So you need to take cognizance of that. Thank you very much.
Senator, thank you so much. And that's it on the program. Thank you for your time and company. And this is the first edition for the year. I hope you had a great time watching. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless Nigeria. I'm Jeffrey Uzongo.